Yay, we're live. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us in this great session. I want to welcome you to day 2 of our mentorship program. Today, we're going to have an amazing conversation. And today we have our special guest, Sharon Takim, and she's going to be speaking to us about preparing for a life of impact, skills needed to succeed in your personal and professional life. Um, I think I'll start by introducing Sharon. Sharon is a great sister, and she's someone that I've really admired over the years. I met her during my Kashim Ibrahim Fellowship, where we both served as former assistants to the Kaduna State Governor, Malam Nasiru El-Rufai. But when you meet Sharon, Sharon is someone who is so passionate in all that she does. She gives it 100 or 200% in everything that she does. She's passionate about education. She was part of the Teach for Africa Education Policy Fellowship, and she did I think the 1 year Teach for Nigeria Fellowship, where she did that in Kaduna State. But she's someone who is very passionate, who is grounded, who loves books. She's an avid reader, and she loves the public sector. She has, when you see young people dedicating their time, their energy, their resources to ensuring that our public service works, who have gotten their hands dirty, as they say, to ensure that Nigeria works as a nation. That is Sharon for you. So I'm so glad and I'm happy that Sharon is joining us on this call today, because she'll be able to share with you some of the life lessons to be able to make impact. And I want you all to listen really attentively to the conversation today. And this is an opportunity for you to listen to her, to ask your questions. If you have your questions, drop them in the chat box, or during the question and answer session, you raise up your hand and you engage. Sometimes we see people, opportunities like this bring people that we would not necessarily have interactions with every day. So this is a great opportunity to have a conversation with her, ask questions. It's a safe space. There is no right or wrong answer. So please, y'all should join me in welcoming Sharon Takim. Thank you very much for joining us. Yay! Let's welcome her to the stage. So I would hand over to Sharon.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much for having me. I have to apologize in advance. There is light issues, but I will do my best. I'm trying to be as creative as possible right now. But thank you all so much, and well done to everyone that is here for seeing an opportunity like this and taking it. I think that many times we end up saying things like the world is not fair or there aren't opportunities, which in a way is true. But I think that it's important that when we do get these little opportunities, we take advantage of them. They don't come around every day. So I think that the fact that you're here just shows that you're someone that is actually committed to growing and becoming. And we need so many women like you. So on that note, happy International Women's Day. Um, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
I'm sure that yesterday's session with I call her Sisi Vero. I'm sure that yesterday's session was fantastic. I know I would have loved to be in, but yesterday was a very long day. So I'm just excited to be here. I would really love for this to be very conversational. Um, I think that as Vero has said, this is a very safe space. So if one or two people will just share in their in the chat box one thing, maybe one fear that you have, or one thing that you think is holding you back from being all that you would like to be. Let's start from there, and then we go into the skills required for a life of impact. And I will try to make it as concise as possible so that we can then again go into conversations. So if there's anyone that wants to share, trust me, it's a safe space, no judgment. This is for you never know how what you say is going to help someone. So maybe, a big question on your heart, or something that you've wondered about, or something that may constitute a fear in your heart, maybe. If you want to share that. I know that for many women, stuff like work-life balance is always a question. I'll give an example. I've heard a lot of people tell me, all these things that you are doing, you better calm down. No, you don't want it to be that somebody will now say, you're doing too much, and then they will now not want to marry you again. So I've heard it. I'm pretty sure that other women on this call have heard it, where they tell you to be careful with your procrastination, where they tell you to be careful with the things that you're doing just in case, ah, so that people will not be afraid or intimidated. And I think that that's something that would be great to address. But I really want to hear from you as well. I'm seeing some messages in the chat, so I will just go there. So yeah, procrastination, fear of failure, stagnation, inconsistent motivation. Very interesting. Well, I asked, so I can't run away. Funds. Wow. Okay, funds for funds. That one. Okay, so I'll probably tell a story to answer that, but maybe we can start with procrastination, fear of failure, really. And I think that sometimes that fear of failure feeds into why we procrastinate, where you want to do something, but maybe sometimes you're afraid that it's not going to turn out how you hope. And then you're just like, you know what, let me leave it till I'm super ready. Let me leave it until I have everything in place. Let me remove any possibility that I'm going to fail. And I think that in a way that's more self-sabotage than actually just trying and failing, honestly. But I will come back to these questions. Thank you for sharing them. I will just go into the meat of what I want to talk about today, and then I will come back, and maybe during the course of the conversation, you would hear some things that would answer these questions even before I come back to address them. So I'll just start with, myself. I've done a number of things. I've done plenty of things, and at some point, I started to wonder, this woman, what exactly is it that you want to do with your life? Because today you're doing stuff in education, tomorrow you're doing governance. Like, at first, there didn't seem to be direction, so to speak. But with time, I realized that every experience, everything I engaged in, it wasn't necessarily about what I was doing. It was first about who I was, and then how I expressed that to my world. So I think that we need to start. The first thing I would say is, you are not what you do. What you do is an expression of who you are, which is why it's important that you don't end up, for instance, being in a career that you're just there because you feel like that is what will make the most money at this time, or especially in today's world that may not be very friendly as regards, getting a job and things like that. You just pick the first job that comes, and you're like, okay, well, I am now, for instance, an administrative assistant. And why are you an administrative assistant? Because that was the job that you found. So you are not your job. Your job is just an expression or an extension of who you are. And when you start that way, even when you're working as a secretary or a cleaner, whatever it is, there is that honor and dignity, because you are not working from the outside, you're working from the inside. And then when you now clean, you clean like who you are. When you talk, you talk like who you are on the inside, whether it's about, for instance, in my case, education or governance or capacity development. Is just an outflow of who I am. And I think that some of the skills that are necessary for a life of impact, when you're preparing, when you know that this journey of life, I really want to go far, I really want to, impact my world. I don't know who your mentors are. You could drop some of your mentors in the chat as well. So I don't know who your mentors are, but for instance, someone like me, I look up to people like architect Jumoke Adenowo. I look up to people like Mrs. Ibokun Awoshika. And these are people that I don't know, they don't know me. I may never have the opportunity to meet them in my lifetime, but by virtue of how they have lived, they have inspired me. And I'll use one of them as an example of what I just said. I'm looking forward to seeing your mentors and people you look up to in the chat box. I really want this to be as interactive as possible. So, for instance, I look at NOI. Yes, that's such an amazing woman. So, for instance, I look, someone loves Mommy Buka Washika. Oh, your mom. I wish we had time. I would have loved to hear your story, because many times when we look at people that we admire, we see like all the big people on the outside. Sarah Jake's awesome, but we forget the people that are, within our community, within our Jerusalem, so to speak. So for someone like Mrs. Ibukun Awoshika, she studied chemistry. After she finished that, she decided she wanted to go into furniture. She started making furniture. At some point, she now started to, she was like the only, I think they used to make her furniture in France and then, send them to Nigeria. But she's like, maybe she was the only Nigerian at the time that had a factory in France, right? And after that, she started to make, those doors in banks, those ones that will open and then you enter and then they open on the other end. She now became like the biggest supplier of those to all the banks in Nigeria. And then from there, she moved into so many other things. Now they're begging her to be chairman of boards, so many things with First Bank, with Coca-Cola, and all of that. And if you look at that journey, you might say, well, there's really no, like we say, career path, trajectory. You started by studying chemistry, you moved into making furniture, you then moved into what's it called? Electronic doors, and then you now moved into like business, and it's just very interesting. Or for instance, someone like Dr. Ola Brown, who is also known as the Flying Doctor. She started by being a doctor just like everybody else, right? Or just like everybody else that went to medical school. And after a while, she moved into starting to provide air ambulance services for people. And now she's a venture capitalist. She does things to support health, but her work now is to fund startups to enable them scale and solve problems. Now, I gave these two examples because these are people that started on one path, so to speak, and then they've transitioned so much that where they are currently looks nothing like where they started from. Ibukun Awoshika, Dr. Ola Brown. But what's the common denominator with both of them? It started from the inside. So Mrs. Ibukun Awoshika just wanted to solve problems. And out of that was born furniture, because she said she was frustrated with the quality of furniture that she saw at the time. And then from there, she moved into, okay, banks need an electronic system of checking and getting people into their premises. So I can make that happen for them. And then she moved into solving problems at that high level, right? For Dr. Ola Brown, it was, okay, I'm a doctor, but some people are in places where they don't have access to, for instance, a neurosurgeon or a specialized service. I can hire an air ambulance or create one. We just have a plane and we can fly people that need it, so that they don't have to, wait all this time and risk their lives and lose their lives because they don't have access to care. And now she has moved into funding um, new ventures, right? What does that tell you? There is no time in your life where it is too late to reinvent and reimagine yourself. The only thing is that you need to, first of all, know who you are. Then when you live out of that, it's going to come out in different expressions. So you are not your job. You are not what you do. I know so many people that will get into for instance, there's an economic downturn, people lose their jobs, and then it's like the world crashes for them. And you see people that will tell you, oh, when I was laid off in 2002, it's very sad. And I understand that. But when you understand that what I do is not who I am, what I do comes out of who I am, it's easy for you to reinvent yourself. And I'll give a personal example. For instance, as Sisi Vero had said, we worked together, in government. We worked with the Kaduna State Governor. I stayed back a year after the Kashim Ibrahim Fellowship, and I still worked with him. And then we had a political transition. Nigeria had elections, right? And a new governor came. And then there was kind of the opportunity to work with him, but the process was like taking a long time. And I said, you know what? I'm really not going to wait for you to decide whether you want me or not. And I moved on. Now, for some people, being a special assistant to a governor is like, oh my God, I've reached the apex of my career. I've reached the zenith. Whatever it takes, I'm going to stay here. If I need to lobby the whole of Nigeria, I will lobby the whole of Nigeria. But when what you do comes out of who you are, you know that if these people are not treating you in a way, or they're not acting like they understand your value, it's okay to move, right? And it's the same thing with relationships, where somebody is treating you in a way that shows that they may not necessarily value you, and you stay there because of the many things we've been told as women. Just be patient. That's how they are. There are no good men outside, or all the blah blah blahs that they tell us. So I hope that you've been able to pick the first thing that I really wanted to focus on, which is a question of who you are. I think that that's the first thing that you need to know to prepare for a life of impact. Know yourself and know your why. So when you know who you are, and it takes a while, right? Remember, I've said it's not what you do. So I've taken away a huge chunk of what people do for women. For instance, even as beautiful as being a mother is not who you are. Being a mother is an expression of the care and the love that you have for people, that you want to raise your children to become, to maximize their potential and have all the opportunities to impact their world. So being a mother is still not who you are. Being a wife is not who you are. It is what you do out of being someone that has a lot of love to share and to give people and to cater to people, especially if you have a nurturing nature. So know yourself. Know your why. That's the next thing. Very important. Why do I do the things I do? Why am I like this? You cannot afford to become a victim of the randomness of life, right? Because if not, life will just keep, like, the way it is, for instance, even with relationships, people give you what you accept. So if, for instance, you're seeing somebody, and in the early stages, you're not someone that likes to be insulted, but this person wakes up one day, and, for instance, I'm in the West, so something common that people will say is you're bantering someone and then they call you an ode. So ode means like stupid, but people use it as a term of endearment. Now, for some people, it's cool. They'll just insult you back and they move. But if for you, that's a problem, and you don't say anything because you don't want to rock the boat, because you've been taught that you should, tolerate and let things slide. But you know that you're not comfortable with that. If the person calls you there today and you don't answer, they will call you fool tomorrow because you've opened that door. And people will keep giving you what you accept. But if someone says that to you and you very kindly but firmly say, I know that you meant it in jest, but I'm not very comfortable, because words are important to me. I'm not very comfortable being addressed in that manner. First of all, you hear, now, wow, small thing, you're already vexing. But the next time they're tempted to say that, they will think about it again. And if there's someone that respects you, it will adjust how they behave towards you. Right. So that's how you train and mentor people to treat you. But you can't tell people not to call you names when you don't know who you are, when you don't know what you stand for. So you need a great deal of self-awareness. And self-awareness is not just, oh, I know who I am, I'm a star, I'm the best thing since sliced bread. No, nobody is that special. Everybody has one comma or the other. In fact, I'm very aware of my very many commas, right? But knowing yourself is, your strengths. We always hear about SWOT analysis. You know your strengths, you know your weaknesses, you know the opportunities that come out of your strengths, and you know the threats that come out of your weaknesses. So when you are able to table your life like that, you are now able to start creating a system that will work for you, and that now influences the decisions you take, the places you go. If, for instance, you know that you have a very soft heart, right? and anybody, you have so much compassion that someone tells you a sob story and you've emptied your account, you know that it's a strength. Your kindness is a strength, but then your willingness to give everything without a plan is a weakness. So what you do is you create a system where, for instance, you just have a budget for giving for the month, so that no matter what anybody tells you, once you've exceeded your budget, you've exceeded your budget for that month. That's a way to keep yourself in check. So something that can be good, something that is good can become not necessarily bad, but it can have its downsides. But when you're aware that you do have strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, you are now able to create a system that works for your life. Now, I think it's also important to know what you believe about yourself and why you believe it. Then it's also important to note that whatever you're doing in life is not just about you, right? So you can't afford to be selfish. You can't afford to not let your light shine. You can't afford to not, for instance, we mentioned procrastination before. You can't afford to procrastinate because someone put it like this. They said procrastination is the arrogant assumption that God will give you a chance to do tomorrow what you were supposed to have done today. So the truth is there are some opportunities that may never come again. There's some things that if you don't apply for, you will not get. Like for instance, some of you saw this Women in Leadership Group mentorship and you took it. If you didn't take it, you won't be here today. I'm sure that there are some people that did take the opportunity but are not here now. So they're missing out on this conversation and this opportunity to grow. And they can't blame anybody for that because it was a choice that they made, right? So it's important to know that we're here now, we're on Google Meet. Somebody designed Google Meet to solve a problem, which is we need to be able to meet with people from all over the world. How are we going to do it? Okay, we need to hear them and we need to see them. So what do? We just create a simple platform. If the person that was supposed to do it procrastinated and did not show up to, write the code and do everything that was necessary, we won't be here today. We'll probably have found another platform. But then if, for instance, another platform now came up and did this, that person will now wake up and say, oh, they stole my idea. No, they didn't. That idea had a lifespan on the earth. You had the opportunity to pick it early. If you do nothing about it, if it needs to be done, somebody else will do it. So you hear a lot of people, oh, they sang the song that I received, they stole my idea. Not necessarily. You're not the only one that receives an idea at any time. So when you procrastinate, first of all, you're cheating people of the opportunity. For instance, Google employs maybe up to, I know, maybe in the thousands of employees. If the person that designed that decided that this thing is stressful, let me just leave it, what was going to happen? We won't be here now. People will not be earning money from this. People will not be able to have conversations and have opportunities to connect. So everything you do is not just about you. Even if, for instance, as I mentioned before, even though being a mother is not who you are, is an expression of who you are. But imagine that as a mother, you don't give your 100% to raising your children and being there for them and being present. You never know what this child is going to do in the future, and your care influences how they show up in life. So if you don't give them that solid foundation, when they got into life, people will be cheated of the unique expression of them that they should have gotten. So when you realize that life is not, a mentor of mine sent that to me one time. So he had asked me to give a, when we did teach for Nigeria, at the end of our institute, there was a valedictory speech. And then said, you're going to take it. And I was like, no, I don't want to take it. I don't like all this stress. And then he was like, I need you to understand that this is not about you. And when he said it, it hit me so hard. And I was wondering, why would you just, it's not fair, you're just choosing violence on me. But then he explained that everything we do in life is not just about us. We live in a very social world. Our decisions impact others. So there's no such thing as, oh, I'm just living my life, I'm just doing it quietly. If I procrastinate today, maybe I'm not hurting anybody, it's just me. No, it's not just you. There are people tied to that vision, that dream. Imagine if Veronica and her co-founder had decided that setting up an NGO in Nigeria was too stressful and they decided not to do this initiative. We will not be here today. We will not be having this conversation. So there are a lot of people that are tied to the dreams that are on the inside of you. And you need to know that because it's not about me, I have to show up every day. I have to do the work. I have to push myself, right? Then it's also important to stand for something. I know that it feels like I may not be giving specific skills, but trust me, if you listen to this again, you will find that there are things that you can pick as skills that you need to design the life of your dreams, right? And then I've mentioned stand for something in terms of be very clear on, for instance, my thing is helping people become like the best version of themselves. So whether I do it through outreaches or I do it through creating TFNX in Kaduna, or I'm a Teach for Nigeria fellow, I'm a Kashim Ibrahim fellow, all that is just different ways to express me helping people become the best versions of themselves that they can be, providing them the skills, the supplies, whatever they need to um, become the best version of themselves, right? So just have your why. And sometimes it gets very complicated when people talk about purpose and they're like, oh my gosh, I don't know my purpose. I don't know what I'm supposed. I think that a way to simplify it is what excites you. Just start from there. What excites you? What makes you happy to get up in the morning? If, for instance, you wake up today, let's say at work, you are given an assignment and they say, oh, you're going to do this and that today, and then you're excited to do that work, that might be a pointer. But sometimes your purpose is found in things that you can do easily, but you don't like to do, right? So, for instance, I'm someone that I end up being given a lot of tasks. But because I can turn over tasks quickly, I don't necessarily like it. But if I have work to do, I can sit down on a spot for 6 hours, 8 hours until I'm done. So I may not necessarily like it, but it has translated into giving me the opportunity to work with, people that I respect. So it's a means to an end. So you need to not be so bogged down with feelings in terms of, oh, it's not giving, like we say in this season now. It's not giving, it's too stressful, I'm not going to know. Whether you like it or not, if you're good at it, that's also a pointer. So the first thing is what excites you. The second thing is what are you good at. So all these things will combine together to give you the quality of life that you want and to reinvent yourself for the life that you deserve, right? So I will now talk specifically about some skills. Now, because I had mentioned earlier and I said over and over that it's not about what you do, it's who you are first before all the different expressions of what you do feed that. I will now talk, most of the skills I will talk about are what we call soft skills. But if you can master them, I mean, you can go to school at any time. You can be 30 and decide to go to school to become a doctor, and at 37 you'll be a doctor, so you can learn that skill. If you want to be a lawyer, you can go back to law school at 35. It might be stressful, but in 6-7 years you can be called to bar, right? So for secular or knowledge-based education, you can do that at any time, right? But if your insights are not fixed, don't waste your time, don't even bother, because you'll keep running around in circles, you keep getting stuck. I mean, you look at some people, I mean, they're let me use law. So Sisi Vero, I know, is a lawyer. My father is a lawyer as well. So I have a bit of insight into that. So you will see the law profession, right? And you see some people that, go on to set up like huge law firms and they're doing so many amazing things. And then there's this other group of people that seem to only get the most low paying clients, is the ones that will owe them. And then people now unfortunately end up calling them things like charge and bail lawyers, right? And they went to the same law school. It's not inside Nigeria and outside Nigeria. They were probably classmates. What makes the difference is who you are on the inside. If you've not fixed here, number one, you will not be able to say, this is what I deserve. Number two, you will not be able to say, since this is what I deserve, this is how hard I'm going to work to get what I deserve, right? I know a lot of women these days, we talk about high value women and, this kind of where people say things like, oh, you only get, unfortunately, when people now talk about high value women these days, is for things they can collect from men. Where did we learn that thing from? why would you want somebody to give you money when you can be making the money and giving? For instance, if you're a Christian, there's a reference that we use a lot, is Proverbs 31. And we talk about the Proverbs 31 woman and how she did all of that. And it's a good read. So she, gets up early, makes food, she works with her hands, she creates flags, she sews, she does all of that. The Proverbs 31 woman was not a broke babe. You need to write that down. She had businesses, she had staff, she employed people, she also valuable. That, for instance, I did not know that Jumoke Adeno's husband was the head of a bank. I never knew him until the day that she posted him and congratulated him on something. So I knew his wife, and I only know him because I know his wife, because of the value that she gives to the world. Same with Ibuku Awoshika's husband. I did not know that he was a billionaire. When they got married, he was not wealthy at all. He was just starting life. She had already started her business. And then she said it didn't take a number of years. This man gapped her to the point that, like, he started prospecting for oil. He has like oil wells. So she said he can buy and sell her 7 times. But when they got married, she had more money than him. Right. So when you now put all your value in becoming a woman that men spend money on, you've missed the point. Again, the Proverbs 31 woman was not a broke babe. In anything you do in this life, money is important, right? And most times we attract money by the value that we command. So we need to be so valuable that people are willing to pay us for our time, for our expertise, for things that we can do. And it has to be unique enough that it's not like you can do the same thing that 50 people are doing. So that's also very important to note. And then I will now talk about your uniqueness. So what makes you you? I've talked about things that you can do easily. I've talked about things that excite you. So I think that you can start drawing up a table. Maybe City Vero can give you the task for you to create your SWOT analysis. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What are the opportunities that come out of them? And what are the threats that I will face? Then you can also talk about, what do I do easily? What do people call me for? And what excites me to get out of bed in the morning? Now, I'll just talk about a few skills that I feel you need to have. Number one is integrity. What do people know you for? When you and The word integrity comes from integer, which means sameness, meaning you are not two-faced. The person you are here is the same person you are in maybe China, is the same person you are in another place. So people don't come and say, I mean, of course we have unique parts of our personalities, but in terms of who you are, they know that this is what Sharon believes, and there's nothing you can do that will get her out of this, her belief. That's a fantastic way to live life, right? So if people don't know you as a person of integrity, for instance, there are offices where people, for instance, if you've ever heard about government, you hear about things like, oh, people are, sharing money, they're stealing and everything. There's some people in that office that nobody has ever approached them in their life to give them money or a bribe or anything. And why is that? Because they already know them as this one. I think they call them Jews. They'll be like, this one is a Jew, meaning this person is not going to engage. They're not going to collect your money. They're not interested in what you're doing. And that's sameness. You can't be one person here and another person outside. Even the people that are encouraging you to be two-sided will not respect you, because when it now comes to time to recommend people for things, they won't recommend you. Yeah, they're friend for chilling and for spending money and for going to places, but in terms of things that will change your life, they will not recommend you because they don't trust you. They will go to somebody that they may not necessarily like, but they know that this is this person's character. This person is consistent. If I give this person this work, they are going to deliver. End of story. So what are you known for? What do you stand for? You need to be bold about your beliefs. It's very important, right? So whatever you believe, don't be afraid to voice that out. For instance, if you're a lady and you're a Muslim and you believe very much in covering your hair as part of your identity, you don't now go somewhere and then in a bid to, let's say, get a job or something, they now tell you, this your head covering or this your hijab is not going to work. And then you now say, should I consider it because of how much they're paying me? No. The reason why is because how you get a job or an opportunity will influence how you need to show up every single day. So, for instance, I've heard of people that say, oh, they want to get a job and a man said they should come and sleep with them and they are wondering about it. And I say, sis, if you sleep with a person to get a job, you will keep sleeping with them to keep that job. And people will know. And one day you will leave because you cannot continue. It's like blackmail, right? If somebody decides to blackmail you, I promise you, tell them, please do your worst. You want to post a picture, post it. Whatever, just do it. The reason why, okay, I see someone raising their hand. If you could write your question in the chat, then we proceed with, I will take your question first. When I'm answering questions, I'll try to round up soon. So when you start that way, and that person will influence how other people treat you. So if they know you as, oh, she's only here because she's Oga's babe, nobody will respect you. Full stop. Nobody will respect you. And you will still end up leaving. So it's never worth it to um, drop your personal values and your integrity to gain anything, because it will come back and bite you. No matter how well intentioned it is, it will be hard in the immediate, but trust me, the long-term benefits are unimaginable. Or for instance, I know people like that, and this is based off of experience. And I would never judge you, but I've learned from their experiences. So I speak very honestly. I can't tell you what to do, but I can tell you the consequences that I've seen of the path that you've chosen. So I do know someone that, the same boss disturb, boss disturbs. Now the challenge is, if you now respond to those advances, anybody that is meeting you, they're meeting you based on what that person has said about you and who they know that person to be. So who recommends you determines how people are going to treat you or regard you. So if they've already come and you're in a meeting and they're like, who is this guy? Like, they say, that's my smallie. You forever remain that person's smallie. End of story. So it's very important for you to stand for what you believe in. You cannot exalt money above your values. It will come back and bite you. You realize that you can have money and not have peace of mind and you'll be miserable. You can have everything that you want to buy, but then your peace is gone and you will not be able to buy that back. There are things that money cannot buy, and those are the things that are most important in life. Next is empathy. You can't keep living life about and thinking only about yourself. What can I do? How is this going to benefit me? Someone says, can you volunteer for this thing? And you're like, how much are you people paying? Every time you people be looking for volunteers, you cannot. I mean, it's true, some people use volunteers as a basis for, but the truth of the matter is there's no organization that runs on volunteers or like NYC people that grows, because you get what you pay for. It's free labor. They will give you free value of work. And for instance, if someone that is an NYSC person does great work for you, they are using that as an opportunity to grow. And one day somebody will see that value and say, these guys are not rewarding you properly. Come, let me reward you. So those organizations, don't worry, they don't grow. They never go anywhere. If you see any school that only works with NYC people and everything, you will know that they've never scaled, they've never grown. They remain at a certain level. So don't let that bother you. But if you see somebody that has something that you want to learn, don't be afraid to give them your time, but do it intentionally. Don't just be hanging around and saying, these people are using me. No. Say, I want to learn 1, 2, 3 things from this person. Then walk up to the person. I think that would lead to my next point, actually. Walk up to the person and say, I would like to help you in such and such and such ways. So the next one I'll talk about is boldness, right? For women, for many years, we've been taught that don't do too much, don't show yourself, don't just jeje. You don't want people to think that you are forward. We hear forward a lot. You don't want people to just be, as you raise your hand to talk in a meeting and then somebody is telling you sit down, or you realize that you go for a meeting just because you are the lady in the room, they're telling you to make coffee. And looking at them, I'm like, say, went to school together, right? The same degree you have, the same degree I have. In fact, I've even gone ahead to get certifications, but you want me to make coffee. Now, that's the point where, I had mentioned being clear on your value and not allowing people take that for granted. So there are two options here. If that space is a space you need to learn something, then learn it, but live fast. Don't let that become your usual, right? But for instance, I'll give an example. This happened to me very recently, and this is a safe space, which is why I can share. There's somebody that I'd really admired, and I like the work that they do. And I'd been hesitant. I'm like, I don't really want to reach out to this person. I don't know how they'll perceive it. I'm sure that people are always reaching out to them, you know. But eventually, I found the boldness from somewhere and I sent a message. And then eventually, they went through my profile again, which is very important, how you present yourself to the world. So I saw LinkedIn tells you when some people view your profile. Sometimes they want you to pay money, so they'll say pay for premium. But for some people, they will show you even if you're on the free plan. Because I'm on the free plan currently. I don't think I want to pay like 15K a month for LinkedIn. But I saw that he viewed my profile. Then I was now waiting. I was like, hey, Godo, Godo. Then, like, I think 4 hours later, I now responded to my message. And then he asked me to email him. Then I emailed him. And then it took a month for him to respond to my email. But in that time, I wasn't now back to back. Hello, just prompting you, just to remind you. Say all these people say, if you know you not answer my email, why do you give me your mail? I just waited. And that's also, so I've talked about boldness. You need to tie it to patience as well. But then I waited. Eventually, he now sends an email and he's like, oh, I'm so sorry. It's taking me this long to respond. Please reach out to my, let my EA schedule a meeting for us. So I was really excited. I was like, finally, oh, thank God. Then I had an event, my workplace had an event on Saturday. And I went for that event. And because I was doing running around, I didn't need to. We had volunteers. I could have asked them to, but I was like, you know what, let me just work. So I was going around, and then the space we used has like a cafe. Guess who I saw in the cafe? The same person that I had been trying to reach. So I then walked up to him and I'm like, hi, I don't know if you probably recognize me, but I'm the one that spoke to you on LinkedIn and then got your email. And then, and he, funny enough, he recognized me. And then he's like, oh, do you have my number? Take my number. And this was like last week. This person that my appointment with him, because he's a very busy person, is next month, April. But because I had that face-to-face contact and I was bold enough, first of all, bold enough to message him. Second enough, bold enough to approach him when I saw him, because I was actually scared. I was like, you don't want to go and send the wrong impression. But then by the time I spoke to him again, within the time I saw him and today, I've had 3 meetings with this person. Like, he's like, oh, there's this project, you do education, Abi. There's this thing I'm working on, plug in, right? So that's what boldness will give you. Boldness will give you a foot in the door. Patience will teach you to stay until you bring out what you want out of that situation, right? And this person is very wealthy, but trust me, I'm not asking him for 5 naira because I'm not there for money. Money is very important too. Again, please, money is very important. But the value that I'm going to get out of an interaction with him and the places and conversations I'll have is more valuable to me right now than money. So I still have my job. So I'm working. I did not quit my job and say this is now my new source of income. No, I'm doing my work. But when the first interaction we now had, the first thing he asked me was, what can I do for you? I know for some of us, hey, the Lord has done it finally. He has answered all my prayers. I said, sir, actually, you don't know what's going on in my life. And then I was like, no, sir, actually, the question is, what can I do for you? Then he smiled. And then he started telling me about the projects that he's working on. And then because of the way I had presented myself and the way I had communicated, he now said, okay, this project has a meeting this day. Do you want to join in? Yes. Then this one has a meeting. Yes, they will ask me, just be adding me, right? And that's how you scale up. First of all, you're valuable. 2, you are confident in the value that you have to give, and then you are able to be patient to express that. So it's taking years. It's not, I'm sure that this initiative, I know that it was created a few years ago. It takes patience and consistency and just trying to fine tune things. But you stay there. If you believe that this is an expression you want to give your world, stay there and push until you bring stuff out of it. So I've talked about boldness, I've talked about integrity, I've talked about empathy, I've talked about patience, and I've talked about boldness, because we need to come out of that place where we're too shy to show up in the world. If you're here, you are needed. It's not about going to work and coming back and making money and sometimes even the money itself is just an endless circle. You get your salary, you pay bills, you have to wait for next month again. I genuinely don't think that that's how life was meant to be lived. But when you know yourself and you're able to work from the inside, the next step would now be those opportunities to express you come out, and it can be in different ways. But the moment they start coming out, you're now able to find expression. The other one, and is lately, because me generally, I don't stress me. Let me not stress. Let me just stay in my background and just do my thing. But then I heard about, so the church I worship is starting a boot camp for public servants, and it's a I wish this had happened before we opened applications. I would have encouraged everyone to apply, but they had said it's public service. They want people involved in public service. We have people from all faiths attending the boot camp, right? So the moment it was announced, because I had done the Kashim Ibrahim Fellowship and I know how much it changed my life, I went to volunteer, and I'm like, please, I have some materials and resources. I have books that we read that I can recommend. And then from there, they're like, you know what, let's just add you to the team. So that's how I got on the team. And now we're starting next week. And then I'm working a lot, but I'm flying to Abuja. I didn't have to pay money for that. Flights are very expensive these days, right? So from volunteering, you get access to different people, and you need to be able to discern those opportunities that are worth it, even if they're not giving you money. But you also need to be bold. You need to be patient. Women, we tend to rush because sometimes we've been taught that if this is going to happen, it's going to happen immediately. Not necessarily. Sometimes it's just a seed, and then you leave it, and then it comes back and just brings fruit later on. Then commitment. First of all, commitment to yourself. You need to love you. You need to be committed to your growth. You need to be committed to um being the best version of you. Remember, we said it's not about you and the world needs you. So your commitment to being the best version of you is also very important. You need to show up for yourself and you need to show up for your world. If there are opportunities to help people, please help people. If there are opportunities to show up for others, please show up for others. And I think that there's 7 minutes left, so I want to like try to just, oh, someone said they had a question but they didn't drop the question. But yes, I talked, so I think procrastination, I've mentioned that you can't assume that that opportunity is always going to be there. Somebody else will do it, trust me. So your job is to move as quickly but as well informed as possible. With stagnation, I think that would be solved by, we've talked about going inwards and knowing who you are. Sometimes we get stuck because we're not taught these things. Many people here just go to school, get a job, and work and marry and have your children and live life, and that's it. But if you know that this is not who I am, right? This is not the life that I want. It now forces you to ask questions. Okay, do I need to go back to school? Do I need to take courses? But you cannot sit down and expect that life is just going to show up for you. The world is not fair. There are 8 billion people in this world. Everybody is trying to make something of themselves. Like what someone I respect always says, it's not crowded at the top, it's at the bottom that people are scrambling. And that's true. If you look at a pyramid, the higher you go, the smaller it is. But if you're able to make space for yourself, nobody can chase you because it's your innate value. If they chase you today, they will look for you. There's no how. They will look for you. If you're valuable enough, even when you leave a space, they will keep the hole you leave cannot be easily filled. They will have to look for somebody, and when they can't find somebody that can do it as well as you, they will come back and beg you and say, this time, okay, what do you want? Right? So very important. With funds, I think that patience plays a very huge role here. Right. There are times in your life where you're doing all the right things, but the money is not coming. At that point, I would just say live as lean and as simply as you can, right? Don't, for instance, I never really wanted to go back into like the private sector, so to speak, after being in government. I wanted to work in policy. But at the time when I was waiting to hear back from the government and they were not forthcoming, and then someone says, oh, I have a role for you, and it's private sector, they were not paying me as much as I was earning before. I said, you know what, it's fine. I will start. I'm not starting because this is what I deserve. I'm just staying here to continue growing, because what they did was, the role is almost fully remote. I only go to work once a week. So what I have is, I have my time. You're not paying me as much, but I have my time. And I use that time that I have to create other opportunities for myself. So that by the time I'm leaving here, you are not paying me as much money, but what you're giving me is the opportunity to use my time to benefit myself. So that's how you weigh things. Yes, sometimes the opportunities that you feel are, in a sense, beneath you, but what are the benefits of taking this now? For some people, it's okay to do this right now when, for instance, you don't want a gap on your resume. If that's it, it's okay to work at a, maybe they don't pay you well, but it's important what you do there is very important, right? What they call you is very important. So you can start there, then you now skill up and use that to leverage yourself to a better place. I mentioned some things will not pay you as well, but if there are other opportunities, please take it. Don't just be sitting down waiting. Yes, I know you deserve a certain type of role and a certain type of pay, but if that's not coming right now, what can you do in the moment to grow yourself? Keep doing that until that opportunity shows up. Then once the opportunity shows up, trust me, nobody will be surprised, because they know that you showed up consistently and you were giving of yourself until you reach the point where people now see your value as undeniable, right? So all the many things, for instance, Teach for Nigeria, I went in classroom for 2 years. I was teaching literacy to 120 watt pupils. But because I did Teach for Nigeria, when I was applying for the Kashim Ibrahim Fellowship, that was the experience that made me valuable and confident enough to say, oh, I have always been committed to helping young people. But if there was nothing on my resume, it's going to be hard for people to believe the things that you say you want to do, right? So just be building your track record, keep building, come with consistency, have integrity, push, be motivated, but be patient. There is times and seasons for everything. Where you are now, keep working there until you sight an opportunity. When you sight that opportunity, be bold enough to take it and be patient enough to allow that come to full maturity. I'm looking at my time. I don't want to go beyond this. I hope that this has been helpful. I've left only 1 minute. So I'm so sorry for taking this much time. I didn't think that I was going to, but thank you so much, Cici Vero, for having me. Thank you everyone for listening. Thank you for the feedback that you shared in the comments. And I don't know, I don't think that we still have time for a few questions, but
Yeah, we
feel
have
free
we
to
have
stay.
time for a few questions if people have questions. Yeah, we do have time for a few questions. So please, if you have a question, just raise up your hand, and you can also drop like your comments or your questions in the chat box. But I mean, thank you, Sharon, so much for today. I mean, when you were speaking, they were like, I told them I always have my paper and biro, and I'm always writing, because for it's not only a learning experience for the mentees, it's also a learning experience for me. I've known you for a couple of years, but also listening to you tell your story is really, really different. And one thing that struck me or hit me when you spoke was boldness. Boldness for women is really, really key. The honest truth is, women have the capacity to do so, so much more than we can even imagine. But one of the things that I mean, I'll speak for myself. One of the things that's also prevented me from getting some stuff is because I wasn't bold. But whenever I've seen that, whenever I take that boldness, whenever I have taken that step to step out of my comfort zone, like, I mean, I told people yesterday, when I do it afraid, I know that, okay, I'm scared at the back of my mind. I don't know how it's going to become. I don't know how it's going to be, but I know that I have to do it. And boldness is one of the characters that, would shine forth. When people see your boldness in the room, they listen to you. And I think that that's one advice. I mean, I've taken a lot of advice, but that's something that I really learned today, to take that bold step. And there was something you said that really, and I could relate to that. Sometimes you take certain positions, not necessarily because you know that you deserve more, but you take them because you're trying to do something pending when you get there. But one thing I can say is that no skill learned while doing something volunteering would ever go in vain. I want to speak about when we started WiLG. we had to be getting somebody to design all our graphics. We had to get someone to design all our graphics, and it would really cost us an arm and a leg. You know, when you want to make changes, it's hard to go and meet somebody. But Canva was a skill that I started learning by myself. And everywhere I've gone to, everywhere I've worked at, I've seen that Canva is a skill that has helped me. I mean, somebody will tell me to write a policy paper and I'll put some Canva designs and graphics inside. And they'll be like, okay, that's nice, because that Canvas skill has made me stand out. It was something I learned on the side. So any skill you learn on the side, any skill you learn volunteering would never go in vain. Once you get to the top, you would never even know. I'm sure you get to a room where it's only you that can do it. And everybody's calling you, come and help me do this. And that's what adding value to yourself is. So thank you very much, Sharon. Let me check if there are questions in the chat box. Every day I pray for boldness. Thank you very much. But one thing is, take that step. Do it afraid. Don't let anything stop it. What's the worst that will happen? It's a no. And you'll be fine. It can be a no, it can be a yes. But at the back of your mind, you did it. So there's no regret. So yeah, I can't see any questions as of now. So I just want to say thank you very much, Sharon. Thank you for joining. I know that, a lot of people were having network issues back and forth. But I mean, we always have the recording for people to listen to. I mean, I listened to yesterday's recording myself too. But just to also thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for being here despite the challenge. I just thank you. All I can say is thank you. I'm super excited of this project, and I'm really grateful to every one of you who have supported me. So thank you very much. So let's all say thank you to Sharon. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate you and thank you. We wish you all the best in your endeavors. I'm super excited when I saw that your church was going to do the public service. I mean, it was something that is so beautiful. And when you join public service, it's something that, and I mean, those experiences and those learning opportunities will never go in vain. So thank you for sharing your expertise there, and we wish you all the best in all your endeavors. Thank you very much, Sharon. I appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
All right. So we'll call it a night today, and then we'll see you all tomorrow. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.